everyone. Welcome to my LinkedIn Live. My name is Yekemi Otaru. I am co-founder at Ducaru based in Aberdeen, Scotland. We're a management consultancy and we work closely with commercial and technical sellers in companies that are usually knowledge intensive. So that would be IT, manufacturing, engineering, those type of companies. They usually don't maybe like sales or like marketing, but we definitely help them succeed and we help them to take their complex ideas and make them engaging and yeah, go out there and win the day. Today I'm with Sebastian Karlsson, and he is sales manager at Membrane, and he's a phenomenal guy and very good with really helping sales teams become conversant with the databases and resources that they use to do a good job. So I thought it would be great to get him on here, and we're also a partner of Membrane as well, so it'd be great to get him on here and share some ideas. So hi, Sebastian.
Hi, happy to be here.
Fantastic. We were saying how nice the weather is today. So you have 21 degrees
It is.
in Stockholm, yeah?
Yeah, 21 degrees. You can probably see a little bit on my face that I've been out in the sun. I need to go out 5 minutes and I'm like this. So yeah, you'll have to manage that here today.
No, fantastic. It's also lovely here, and I'm lucky to be at a phenomenal hotel called Miracuta House Hotel in Aberdeenshire. And yeah, I'm facing a big window, and yeah, it's fantastic weather today. So the first thing I would love to do, Sebastian, is to hear more about what you were doing before you entered the world of sales performance, enablement, and CRM. So give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, there's a long version and a short version, but I'll do the middle one today maybe. I have a background as an engineer, so I've been studying for 5 years, and I studied up north in Sweden where it's cold and dark basically. The last was it 6 or 7 months towards the end of that studies, I did my master's thesis, and I did that in complex B2B sales. I kind of ended up with sales and with Membrane actually because of that study that I did, where I tried to understand how companies were selling and what they're doing to be successful at this profession. So I interviewed, I think it was 10 sales reps, a CEO, a CRO, and a COO, and just understanding how companies are working with complex B2B sales. And this company where I did this qualitative study, they were selling a product that was super expensive, but also software to that product to run it. So it was a complex sale. Uh, what I also did there was that I interviewed their clients. So how they kind of were looking at the buying process.
Mm,
So I took the sales process and documented that out, and I tried to understand the buying process from the client's perspective, and I kind of put them on top of each other. And out of that study came a lot of gaps, a lot of improvement areas. So yeah, as the sales nerd I am, I found a lot of research, and one of those researchers or people that writes a lot about sales processes is our founder here at Membrane, George Brontén. So we had a coffee and had a little chit chat, and a month later, I started working at Membrane. That's probably 5 years ago or something now. So yeah, that's the middle
fantastic.
middle long version, I'll say.
That's the mid version. No, fantastic. And we are similar in the way that we are both engineers and we love data. And I think the world of sales needs that kind of analytical thinking, the use of research and qualitative and quantitative studies to really
Hmm.
help identify what the gaps and opportunities are around sales.
Definitely.
And as you know, Sebastian, and to anyone who's watching, you may know that at Ducaro, we launched a sales performance research back in February of this year, where we surveyed 104 sales managers in the UK and tried to understand what techniques that they were using around sales, especially with the pandemic, what may have changed around that, and in
Hmm.
particular, the role of social media. And sales tools, could be CRM or sales resources and so on, what role that was playing in terms of helping them be successful. And what we found, there were a few things we found, but one I want to speak about today was that most of the managers that we spoke to said that generating new leads, closing leads were the two really big challenges that they were seeing when it came to sales performance and achieving what they wanted to achieve. So
Hmm.
what have you seen with your research and the work you've been doing at Membrane? What are you seeing as the biggest what are the biggest gaps and opportunities when it comes to generating new sales leads and closing leads?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting and hot topic. And I've seen last 5 years, it's been more and more tools in how we can generate more prospects and leads
Mm,
to the sales reps. But what I've also seen that it's been moving towards a little bit of like a spray and pray approach to some
mm,
sense with marketing and mass sending emails. And I don't know about you, JKM, but I've probably deleted like 50 emails today, just and 25 out of those were like, yeah, have you seen my last email? So with prospecting, I think it's been there's many companies that have been falling into the spray and pray bucket, having 0.2 or 0.3% conversion rates or something like that. So I think that is a challenge, that you believe that that really is the best way of working with complex B2B sales. I really believe in a way where you're, focusing on creating a conversation and leading with challenges, and really understanding what the things that you need to do to get into a conversation. Basically,
mm,
I really believe in the more human, face to face, the conversation, rather than sending a lot of emails. And uh, prospecting, I think it has a lot to do with finding your ICP, who you want to go for, because that's also a challenge I see, that you run for everyone. It doesn't matter turnover, it doesn't matter number of employees or what they do, you just run for everybody.
mm.
um, but that it might not be the best case.
Yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right. And just to touch on, you mentioned ICP, just for everyone listening, that's ideal customer profile. Am I right, Sebastian? Yeah.
That's correct.
So yeah. So some people might call it buyer persona, whatever you call it. But I think that's a really key starting point for a lot of people. And sometimes they skip that stage, and that's when you start sort of spraying everywhere and hoping that something sticks, right? But if you've done that, and you really understand who you want to be speaking to, then it's a lot easier. You spoke about the process and knowing what to do at each stage. What are you seeing tends to be missed when companies are using certain tools? It could be CRM or whatever tools they're using. It seems that it maybe misses some of the stages. Talk through what you're seeing when you talk to companies who maybe have a tool in place and have this challenge with generating leads or closing leads. What are some of the gaps you're seeing within the tools that they're using just now?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting question. When I sit down with sales managers and VP of sales and try to understand, how their sales teams are performing, and stuff like that, I often see that it's quite different towards, how many meetings can a sales rep book in 1 week's time, for example. Some sales rep book 2 meetings and one does 10.
Mm,
And then the question is, of course, what is it that that person do differently? So I believe that you should give them the support of what is it that person is doing. What are they saying? What are they sending on LinkedIn? How does their email templates look like? Like a cadence, but not
mm,
the cadence where you basically, spray and pray, but a manual approach to sales that are more humane, where you actually try to get that conversation going. I think a gap is sharing knowledge and enabling your team to be successful with that. Um, so yeah, that's something that I've seen.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And before we go on, I wanted to drill deeper into existing customers and that sort of account growth aspect of it. But anyone who's listening just now or even later, if you've got a question or a comment or a contribution, feel free to put that in the chat. Sebastian and I will go to the chat once in a while and pull questions up and answer. So feel free to ask Sebastian a question or indeed myself. So going back to what you were saying, Sebastian, we've touched quickly on the generating of new business, right? So generating new leads and landing those leads, and the role of a tool like a CRM in taking you from one stage to the other. You've talked about maybe a lack of knowledge sharing sometimes, or maybe a lack of understanding of who you're actually trying to engage, and then
Mm,
you end up with a spray and pray type approach. When it comes to growing an account, so you already have the customer, we did find in the research that the third biggest challenge that sales managers were having was a concern that their existing customer base was going to leave to a competitor, or they can't cater to them well enough. Excuse me, or they're unable to grow the account, so it sort of stagnates and doesn't
mm,
contribute to the revenue. We both know that it's easier to grow an existing account. I mean, if you've already got someone as a customer, it's definitely easier, and your cost your cost of acquisition, if as it were, is so much lower with
Mm.
growing an existing account and going out to get a new one. So what role can a good sales enablement tool actually play when it comes to growing an existing account?
I think it is around prioritization, because I think many companies are going after or having the same methodology and strategy towards all their accounts, which means that a high revenue client, a high value client would get as much attention as a low value client. So I had a meeting last week where this client said, we're going to have to cut the tail because the top 80% or top 20% of our clients, the classic Pareto 80/20 stands for 80% of the revenues. So they needed to focus more and give more love to the clients that actually was growing with them. And also a trend I've seen is, the traditional account management. I'm a little bit allergic to that. Just managing an account and they will grow with you. Uh, don't believe it that for anything. Basically, I think you need to find a plan with each account of these core accounts, and think you need to prioritize to be able to grow and have them grow with you. And one good exercise is basically visualizing all your clients on, how much money are they actually making with you every year,
Hmm.
uh, versus the actual potential, which is subjective, but you have to do some kind of illustration of where could this client be if only we were, playing our cards right. And with that said, you get like a 2D graph with value and potential, and
Right.
you can start prioritizing. And like my client said here the other week, cut the tail off a little bit and prioritize. I think
Yeah.
that is key.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I think that exercise, even as a sales team or as an organization in general, it's a good conversation to have, right? Sitting in a room and looking at each other going, this account, are we getting the most that we can out of this account? Looking at the actual value we're getting just now and the potential. What are we not seeing? How can we add more value with this client? And I think that throws up all sorts of questions and great conversations in the room, especially if you've got multiple people from a sales background, also people from things like customer service or
Mm.
people that are in the tech phase of things as well, that they can actually contribute and really have different perspectives on how you can grow the account. So that's fantastic. I know we've talked obviously severally over the last few months, and I know that you believe that traditional CRM systems aren't necessarily set up to support the modern sales process. So can you tell us why?
Yeah, I think traditional CRMs historically, 20, 25 years back, they were created to store information, and they they've done that well. You can go in and log what has been done in CRMs, but then I think that sales has become more. I think I read a little bit between the lines in some parts of your study there, Jacemi, and Ducar's study, that sales is being, more complex. It's getting even more complex. So you need to get support to close more deals. Basically, you need to get guidance, and I don't believe that traditional CRMs was created for that. They were, created so that managers could get their reports. Have reps, whether they're on sales or CS, to write down what has been done. I think that is good for many reasons, but today I think you need to give more guidance in how to drive the right behaviors, do the right things, who you're going to speak with, how you're going to understand them. And yeah, you need more guidance today, and I don't believe traditional CRMs was built to do that. um,
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, with the companies I've worked with, a bunch of corporate organizations before starting my own business 6 years ago. But CRMs were really seen as places that you went and just put some information. It's like a database, or your manager just wants to see what your pipeline looks like, and as a result of that, it's no wonder that salespeople tend to have a bit of a tenuous relationship with CRM systems, and it's like this additional thing they have to do and not really seeing the value. And to some degree, I understand why with the traditional systems that we've got out there that they feel that way. Could
mm.
you comment on that, Sebastian?
Yeah, like I said there with why CRMs was built, yeah, store information, and that kind of, it's kind of built on an assumption that salespeople should then know exactly what to do. Most CRMs have like a pipeline with a Kanban board structure with different kind of stages of the opportunity. But it assumes that you, as a sales rep or a customer success rep or whatever role you have, uh, know exactly what to do in each and every stage. The only thing you should do is log down what has been done. So I think it's not built to help salespeople. It's built to help sales managers to get the reports that they we're looking at every month. So it's not, primarily built for them, and how you can help and guide and steer the right behaviors to get support in like every little stage and step of the journey. Um, so yeah, I really believe that we talked about prospecting, we talk about pipeline management and pipeline. I think that a CRM should really emphasize that, should lift that up for salespeople, because then they're going to want to use the tool because they get support from it. They get enabled and supported and guided. So that's what I see as the biggest challenge to people
Mm.
not using their CRM.
What you're describing sounds like an absolute dream, and there might be, people listening thinking, "Oof, great! Is the CRM meant to do that?" I wonder if we can give a bit more detail. So when you look at a sales team, or indeed just a seller organization, an organization that has you can have technical sales, you can have, people in core sales, account managers, people will be at different experience levels and different competencies. How can a CRM actually cater for that and make sure that people who maybe don't have as much experience are getting the right direction early on in the process? And how does it help the more experienced seller to close more deals? Can you give
Yeah.
an example of how that can possibly happen in a CRM tool?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting. You can, for senior people, like, I don't want to use the tool. I know what I'm doing. It's like assuming that you would never ever do a mistake. And
Mhm.
I've thought that once too. But then I went grocery shopping and I didn't have my checklist. And yeah, I forgot stuff for the Friday dinner back home. So I think it's dumb to assume that salespeople always know what to do. They should only write down what they've done. I think you need to give them more guidance. So one example that we could do is, if we talk about those 3 or 4 stages again, what are the things that we actually do within each stage? How do we do those? What are the next steps? What are the milestones, etc.? What are the key questions that you really need to find an answer to here early on in the process, so that you don't waste your time or the customer's time? What are the key ingredients to your process that you need to do early on? It's like giving them the checklist when grocery shopping, but for salespeople. So
Right.
for me, a sales process is, it's a supporting tool to avoid mistakes, because if you can just avoid a few mistakes here and there, I'm sure you would increase your sales. Like always booking a next step, for example, I've seen that a lot of times, and it's quite helpful once you do. But if you forget it, things might fall through the cracks. You maybe forget about it, and yeah, then 1 month later, they picked another supplier or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And for me, getting more and more into sales, booking that next step has really changed the game, to be honest. And so you can imagine if you had a team of, say, 10 salespeople or even 5 salespeople, and everyone is is on the ball and or has the next step. And that next step could be call the prospect, it could be send some material. So, that kind of thing. And really just a reminder that actually the next step should always be there.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes we find that there's a lot of waiting game. You want customers to, or clients, or well, prospects actually, to think things over, and you're like, oh, I haven't actually heard from them for like a month. But if you had that next step, which was maybe a little email or a message on LinkedIn, or you're going to send them something useful, an article that you think might support them, that is bringing yourself back top of mind with this prospect, and they're unlikely to spend ages getting back to you. So really, really insightful. And so I know that with membrane, there are ways that it's changing the game for teams that are looking to boost performance. So what is it about membrane, Sebastian, that is helping to change the game?
Yeah, I think it's connected, or the answer to that question is connected to the vision of membrane, and the vision of membrane is to elevate the sales profession. We need to lift the sales profession up. We need to give more guidance to people and help salespeople do their job, because it's a hard job. it's a lot of rejection, it's a lot of ups and downs, and I try to write a lot about that on LinkedIn too, because it's challenging. So what we have done is we have focused on a few key pillars, and one of them is, executing your process, because we can't assume that salespeople should always know what to do. We need to give them a process. And you mentioned senior salespeople; they tend to, nah, I have everything up here. Uh, I like to phrase it as a sales process is not about, having your salespeople restrained and doing the same things over and over again. It's about achieving the same outcome over and over again. So
Right.
executing that process, I believe, is key. And while you do so, you need to be able to coach your people. So we at Membrane, we try to build the process so that it actually coaches your salespeople. Weaving in your strategy. You talk a lot about strategy, JKM, at Tucaro. Weaving in that strategy and building in that to a few key processes, that is what we're trying to do. So a few
Yeah.
things that makes us stick out, and it's all connected to, elevating the sales profession.
Yeah, you make a really good point around sales. I think people have different kind of perceptions of what sales is. One thing I know for sure is that sales is a really hard job, right? So, you're constantly getting rejection, and you need to be resilient. You need to have discipline. And I think one of the things that I find with membrane is it really takes that discipline to a whole new level of consistency. So I love how Dave Carlin, he's the CEO of a company called OMG in the US, and he talks about discipline and consistency. And discipline is like, like I want to be on a diet, right? So I want to avoid the cake, and someone's put this cake right in front of me. And discipline is in this moment, okay, I'm not going to have the cake, I'm going to look away, I'm going to resist, and I'm not going to have the cake. And that's discipline, right? And in terms of sales, that could be like, right, I need to make this call to this client. I know it's a bit scary, but I need to make the call, and I'm going to make the call. However, consistency takes it a whole new level where every time you behave the same way. So I've been disciplined today, but tomorrow I might just eat that cake, right? So the consistency has gone away. Or today I have the courage to make that call to the prospect, or to send that email. I've remembered today, so I've had the discipline to do it. But if I'm not doing it consistently, I'm not diarizing it, I don't have prompts to remind me and to make sure that it's actually become a habit, then it actually doesn't have the same impact on your sales
Mm.
performance. And what I love about membrane is how it actually helps generate that consistency. And so it'd be great if you can speak a little bit about how membrane helps with consistency and getting a process that everyone is following, right? So it's taking that
Mm.
consistency to an exponential level, because the five of you, or the 10 of you, or the 100 of you in this organization are doing the same thing that works all the time.
Yeah, and consistency means different for different roles. We have BDRs and full BDR teams, and their only objective is to, book as many meetings as possible. So
Mm.
that part of the spectra of sales, that's one part where we really believe that to drive consistency and drive performance, you need a cadence and a structure of, you remember those two sales reps that I talked about earlier, how we can copy the behaviors of the successful people and scale that, and give them pushes and guidance to do the right things. And when they do the right things, they should get rewarded for doing so. So membrane lift that up. But then when they have done their job, maybe an AE is taking over, jumping into the sales process, and for them to have consistency, they need to take care of these meetings. They need to have a cadence for driving the right behaviors. And if you don't do the right things, like you said that, booking the next step there, Jakemi.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't do that in membrane, you can set a rule to wave a red flag in your face saying, "Hey, you can what are you doing? You
You
always need
haven't
to
booked
have a
that
next
meeting.
step. You always need to do that." Or if it's a little bit less urgent, I can give you a little coaching advice, and it's not red, but it's another color that will indicate that, hey, we might be steering slightly off here. But it's all part of that consistency as you're referring to there.
Yeah.
But then the kind of last part where we released 1.5 years ago, where we're trying to move away from the traditional account management over to the account growth. Like, what are the things we need to do to really set a plan with the key accounts and execute on it and align with them so that we can grow with them as clients. I think that we need support around that too, to stay consistent and have consistent results.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think even moving further back, talking about red flags being waved in my face. Moving even further back in the process, what I really love is that, even when you're at the beginning of that journey with a prospect, what membrane will do is ask you some really key questions that you might forget to ask in those initial meetings, right? So things like, do you really understand how this organization makes decisions? And if you don't understand that, you need to go and find that out. How are they making decisions internally? Are
Yeah.
you connected to the decision maker, and do you understand who is influencing this decision, and do you understand if this is actually quite urgent for them? Do they have a deadline? What's the pain point in the organization that you are looking to solve with your solution? And if those aren't in there, then membranes reminding you and saying, well, have you asked this? So for someone who is actually quite early on in their sales journey, it's a fantastic coach. It's really like a coach in your pocket, because Membrane has an app as well, doesn't it? So, if you're not sure, okay, what else do I need to know? What else can I ask to really make sure that I have an understanding of really where we stand with this opportunity? You can get those through membrane. Even questions like, does this prospect favor you over the competition, or are they neutral? Are they like, actually, we're just open, anyone that
Mm.
gives us the best, value or the most value? Those kind of things can steer how you then manage that opportunity, right? Because if you know that you've got the favor, then there's certain things you will do. If you know that there's actually a competitor or an incumbent, then the way you approach it is completely different as well. So that's
Yeah.
what I really really
You're
like about
bringing up a
membrane.
lot of good points there, and we have to remind ourselves every once in a while, which I also believe is a challenge with many tools out there, that we need to remind ourselves that sales is there's no shortcuts in sales. You can't skip the decision making part, or you can't skip the understanding the need of the client or whatever it might be. So you need to go back and you need to really understand that. And if you haven't, you need to get lifted up to coach you and do the right things at the
Yeah.
next meeting or whatever it might be. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, fantastic. Thanks so much for your time, Sebastian. And anyone who's
my
listening now
pleasure.
that's got that's got a question or anything like that, do let us know. I'm going to put a link in the chat now, which is the partner landing page. And if you like to get time with Sebastian, or you want to see a demo of Membrane, please feel free to get on that page. And also, Sebastian, when I put in that link, you want to tell us a little bit more about um I don't know, is it launched yet? The kind of free version of Membrane, because
Mhm.
you believe so much in Membrane, you know that it's going to bring so much value that you're actually giving away for free now, um, for people to really just start, right? I mean, we have such a passion for sales teams, because we know it's hard. Um, so I'm going to put that link in the chat. So there are going to be a couple of links. So talk to me about this free version, Sebastian, while I sort out my.
Yeah, we're actually doing a little bit of sneak peek launch this week, but it's actually going to be live, and it is live if you go to membrane.com, brain, like the human brain.com, and you can just scroll down and you can pick a workflow and test it out. It's free, and we really believe that once you've set that structure and guidance for how you're going to work, you can easily add more users if you see the value of that. But it's free for now, and we'll try that, and let me know what you think. I'd be happy to sit down with you and show you around if there's any questions or concerns.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think jumping on that now, like you said, it's free now. It's not going to be free forever. So definitely getting people to jump on that. If you would like to get some time with Sebastian, he's kindly shared his diary with me. So if you want to book some time to ask more questions, or kind of share what you're going through right now and see if he can support you, please feel free to get onto his diary, which I am panically posting just now. So that is all
Yeah, I
in the
couldn't
chat.
comment in the. There it is. Yeah, right. So yeah, go ahead and feel free to pick a slot in my calendar. We can chit chat for 30 minutes, and I'm happy to get to know you.
Yeah, fantastic. So, I'm delighted that there's so much love for sales, because, yeah, it's one of these professions that we can't do without. Okay, because everything needs sales. No matter how cool the tech is, people won't just sort of turn up and buy it. But yet, sales does get a really, really hard time. So always happy to see sales enablement tools and resources to support the sales team. Okay. Thank you, everyone who's been listening, and those of you who are maybe watching this back later. Feel free to comment. We will come back to the thread and get back to you if you comment later on. We'll definitely look to answer your questions. Thanks
Cool.
very much. Thanks,
Bye, everyone.
Sebastian.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.